Hello again, everyone. This is Steve Kallas, speaking of sports. I'm here with Johnnie Kallas, and we're here to talk next day about the incredible Clipper defeat, do you want to call it, Johnnie, or Dallas Mavericks win? But we're going to really focus on mainly one play, but we'll go back to the end of regulation, focus on two plays there. And even before that, I just want to say that during the game in the third quarter, the Clippers were up 73-65, and the Mavericks ran off 16 points in a row. Now, after the first couple of baskets, Doc Rivers called time. But then after that, for 5 minutes and 2 seconds, Doc Rivers just let them play. And I want to read you the quote from Jeff Van Gundy, who's usually fantastic, but here's what he said, quote, "And Doc Rivers is refusing to bail them out of this. He's going to try to allow them to play through it." Well, they didn't play through it the first two baskets. When he called time, they were still up 4. But then he let them go from up 4 to down 8 with no timeout, 5 minutes and 2 seconds. I thought that was kind of a big mistake, frankly. But to the Clippers' credit, Dallas goes up 12. The Clippers come back. And now we're going to go, and I'll turn it over to you. Now we're going to go to the final possession in regulation for the Clippers. They're down to Lou Williams has the ball, and then what happens?
Yeah, good to be with you, Steve. I just want to start out with, I think we can give credit for the Mavericks winning this game. We'll talk about a couple mistakes the Clippers made, but without Porzingis, down 21 in the first half, to go up by 12 worth. I also think Lou Williams had what at the time looked like a steal, but then on replay was a foul, big two-pointer late on a steal. So I think the Mavericks definitely deserve to win that game and give them a lot of credit. Last play, yeah, look, the Clippers, I don't know where playoff P has gone. Paul George has disappeared, which we can talk about as well in the playoffs. I actually thought he was their third option behind the two guys who performed great yesterday and really great so far this series, Kawhi and Lou Williams. So if I'm a Clippers fan, as great as Kawhi is, I think he's one of the 3 best players in the game. He probably should be taking the last shot. I'm totally happy with Lou Williams taking the last shot, and he actually shot the ball better. I think it was 13 for 20. Kawhi was 10 for 22 from the field. Both very good, but Lou Williams even a little better yesterday. So I'd be happy with Lou Williams trying to take that. With Kawhi, if Kawhi gets off a shot, we saw what he did last year against Philly, Game 7. He's going to have a chance to make it. I just wish he would have gotten to his spot better. I think he's unbelievable in that. You know, everybody says the sabermetrics guy hates him because he always proves them wrong. That 12 to 17-foot mid-range is unbelievable. Kind of was dribbling around the three-point line till there was no time and kind of took a step to his right and took a real tough – a shot that Kawhi can make. I would have loved to see him try and get in there just a few feet further because that's really his comfort zone. So I thought the Clippers had a little bit of a missed opportunity there. But if I'm a Clippers fan and I see Kawhi or Lou Williams take the last shot on a one-on-one situation, I can't be too disappointed.
Okay, so that was the end of regulation. Obviously, they went into overtime. They went back and forth into overtime. But now we'll go to the final 2 possessions of the game. The Clippers are up 2. I'm sorry. The Mavericks are up 2. The Clippers have the ball. They're coming down court. Kawhi gets the ball on the right-hand side, and you pick it up from there. What happens then?
This is so fascinating, and I think this is even more interesting than the last play of the game because as Mavericks, you're up 2. You know, do you want to go for the win or make sure you don't go down in the game? And I think Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson were talking about this before, and I'm pretty sure both of them said, actually, let's make sure Kawhi doesn't get an easy bucket. But then what happens? So do you double Kawhi? And they kind of half doubled Kawhi. They had someone come off him late or come to him late, and it left Marcus Morris way open. Forget if it was Kleber, who was it? Left Marcus Morris wide open for a 3. Kawhi made an awesome kind of fake pass one way, I believe, to Paul George, or at least he looked one way and made the pass the other way.
Right.
And Morris hits the 3. But if I'm a Mavericks fan and you tell me that Marcus Morris is taking that shot with all the players they have on the court, even though it's a 3, I don't know. I think I'm kind of okay with that. Now, obviously, he made it. But that's a fascinating debate. I'd love to hear your opinion on Do you absolutely make sure that you can't shoot a three, which probably means Kawhi scores, and maybe he draws an and one in the process since refs are calling everything nowadays? Or do you let Marcus Morris take a kind of either go ahead or you're going to lose shot? And with how Morris was doing so far in that game, you almost maybe want to live with that. But it's a fascinating kind of debate.
Well, I'll say this: Marcus Morris has been playing great in this series, but in this game, he did not score until there were 8 minutes and 50 seconds left. He was 0 for 5, and he hit a 2. So I think the problem with letting him take a wide open 3 is, to me, that's the only way you can lose the game. You're right. Kawhi could go to the basket and get fouled, but if Kawhi is going to the basket at that point, and keep in mind they would get the ball back, Dallas, with 9 seconds left. We'll talk about what happened. They had a foul to give. That's why it was 3.7 on the final play. But so the only way you can lose, and at that point, if Kawhi is in the lane by himself, I'm not even going to try. I'll defend him with my hand straight up, and I'm not even going to think about maybe letting him draw a foul. Now, we know that can happen anyway, so your point is well taken. But I think a wide open 3 with a guy who hasn't shot well in this game but has shot well in the bubble, and that's the only way you can be down. Now, you're going to get the ball back, but that's the only way you could be down. I would have preferred that they stay at home and let Kawhi do whatever Kawhi does. He's probably going to make that mid-range, and that wasn't even mid-range. That was like 8 feet. He's probably going to make that. You just want to make sure to go up straight and not foul. But it's the only way you can be behind. Either give him a 3 or, as you said, foul him on the 2. So in any event, there's 9 seconds left. I'll set it up for you. There's 9 seconds left. The Clippers have a foul to give. They do a good job. They foul with 3.7 seconds left. That's about as good as you can do it. And so then you can set up the final play where obviously we all think Luka Doncic, who's already got a triple-double with 40, is going to get the ball. But now he doesn't have to make a 3. They can make a 2, so you have to take that into consideration. So the Mavericks are down 1, 3.7 seconds left. Finney-Smith is taking the ball out of bounds on the side. Kawhi Leonard is guarding Luka, no shock there. And then you can pick it up from there, and we'll go back and forth a little on this play.
Yeah, and that's a great point. The Clippers did a fantastic job. I was shocked the Mavericks threw the ball so far into the backcourt when they had a foul to give with 9.5 seconds. I mean, it cost them at least a couple seconds with the ball on inbound. Yeah. So the Clippers handled that well. The Mavericks handled that poorly. Yeah, so Kawhi gets screened by Big Kleber, who I think is 6'9", 6'10", and comes off him, and Luka now has a much better matchup. And with 3.5 seconds, after he takes one dribble without going to the basket, I think people had in their minds, this is Luka step back rainbow 3 territory, which he actually wasn't. It's interesting to note, during the season, he was only 31% from 3. So we've seen a lot of those goes in, but statistically he wasn't that good. This game he was better, and in general in the bubble and playoffs he's been a lot better. I just think, and I disagree, I think Kawhi needs to be the one to come off Kleber. Even if he gets effectively picked, he still needs to run at him. And you need to force Luka to take a James Harden-like miracle shot like he did against Golden State in the regular season last year, which was incredible, but is not a high-percentage shot. Or you need to force him to get the ball out of his hands. And if he gets the ball out of his hands to an open Kleber, then you can try and switch on him. Kleber doesn't have time to make another pass with 3.5 seconds from the inbound. So then you have Kleber, who's been really bad in the bubble, or at least this series, who I think was at least 0 for 5 from 3. I'm not sure what he was from the field, but didn't do well in the game yesterday. Was really in there to set the screen, taking a potential game-winning jumper. I like that a lot more even than a Luka step-back 3. So I think Kawhi needs to be the one. I know there were some other guys who could have doubled off him as well. I think Kawhi, best defender in the game, best player on the court, needs to be the one to take the ball or at least make it really tough on Luka. It was too easy of a matchup for him, and it ultimately cost him.
You were right. Kleber was 2 for 8 for the field, 0 for 5 from 3. So obviously not very impressive from a shooting perspective. I had a little different angle on that. I know Kenny Smith was yelling, and I understand Kenny Smith was an excellent pro, but I don't think he should be yelling at the TV screen on the replay. Kawhi, you can't switch Kawhi. You can't. I don't disagree with what you said. I will say this guy is 6'10", 240, but Kawhi did kind of almost give up, or certainly you're right, didn't try to fight over it. And I will say, in Reggie Jackson's defense, he did contest, but as they kept saying, he's too little, he's too little, he's too little. But he did get out there and get a hand. But you're right about all of that. But I looked at it from a totally different perspective, never mentioned on TNT after the game. And that was Landry Shamet, an excellent defender, is guarding Finney Smith, who's the inbounder. Now, I thought from the get-go, if you see Doncic over here, I think that he should have, even though it would have been away from the basket, I think he should have tried to cut that pass off. But once the pass is in, once Kawhi gets picked, once it's Reggie Jackson, and you, the out-of-bounds guy, are guarding Finney Smith, you know what the rule is. You got to be careful about the guy who inbounds it, because then he can be open for a shot. But in this situation, just like you're saying with Kawhi correctly, I say once it went into Doncic, instead of running away from the ball with his man, which is what Landry Shamet did, he ran into the corner where Seth Curry was. What's going to happen down there? Nothing. So I think Shamet, as much or more so than Kawhi, should have immediately run to double Doncic. And I think Doncic would have had to have given the ball up. And then I think at that point, whatever happens, because a 2 wins the game, a 3 wins the game, I think whatever happens at that point, you live with. But it seemed to me, again, no Porzingis. They were pretty much a one-man team. They didn't have a Lou Williams on the team. Once Doncic has the ball, I think you got to try and get it out of his hands. And if he still insisted on trying to take a step-back three, which he could still make, you'd have two guys. I'll say it again. Say what you want about Reggie Jackson being small. He contested it as best he could, but you would have had Shamet coming from the other side, and I think he could have got there very quickly. And if you watch the replay, you just see Shamet's running with his man. And I think there's a thing about, I don't want my man to win the game. If I go in double and somehow he makes the winner, I get blamed. I think there is something in players' heads about that with 3 or 4 or 5 seconds left. Because they don't want it to be their guy who makes the winning play, even though to me, doubling Doncic, even with Kawhi, as you said, if he threw it over to the big man, or with Shamet, even if he could somehow get it to Finney Smith. And Paul George was down there with Seth Curry, so it wasn't like Finney Smith was alone waving his hands if he had not been, if he was not guarded. So I think there were some mistakes there. I know you mentioned no Porzingis, and you're right. I'll mention for the 4th time, no Beverly. It's a different team with Beverly on the court. The Clippers are a different team. That coupled with the total disappearing act of Paul George, what a disappointment. And I think maybe there's something in the bubble. You're seeing these guys go for 50. Donovan Mitchell, I think some of these guys walk into these bubbles and they can just, Doncic, they can just shoot it much better. And maybe some guys can't. And number one, Exhibit A is, Paul George, because he's been terrible. The notion that, in my view, the reason I picked him is Kawhi Leonard is there and they're 2 superstars. People will tell you Paul George, one of the 10, 12 best players in the game. Not in these playoffs, not in this bubble, for whatever reason. So take that out, take Beverly out, and you got a 2-man team, Lou Williams and Kawhi. So I don't know what's going to happen forward looking. I'm still going to pick the Clippers. I know you gave the Mavericks a big chance, and you're right. They've done it without Porzingis. If Porzingis kept his head in game 1, they'd probably be up 3-1, and it would be a totally different conversation. So the Clippers aren't done yet. I think Kawhi's going to even do more. I still like them to win in 7. What are your thoughts on either the final play, if you want to say anything else about it, or the rest of the series?
Yeah, I think you're right. Someone needs to double Luka. They just need to. They need to take the ball out of their hands. I just think Kawhi being on him to begin the play, and I think if there's someone on the Mavericks you want to take that shot, you want someone other than Luka, yes. But you really probably want Kleber to take that shot if you can. So he's the guy I would leave open, even more than Finney Smith, definitely more than Seth Curry, who I think missed 1 shot the whole game. I mean, he was incredible. Might as well call him Steph Curry yesterday. He's playing great. Right. So I really think Kawhi needs to be the guy to just go. And Kawhi also, long arms. I mean, hard to get a pass over him. I mean, he could just deflect it, and that's the game. So, but I take your point. You just need to double him. Someone needs to double him. Maybe it's a Doc Rivers problem, too. I don't know what Rivers called in that. Because it looked like Kawhi almost like they were going to switch no matter what. That was his reaction. Like, no matter what's happening, we're switching. It was very bizarre to me. Because he went right off him. I don't want to say but he just went right off him. So it was very interesting. Just a couple final thoughts on that shot. The Mavericks, so yes, Porzingis was out, which makes it a more incredible performance by Luka. the Mavericks have some shot makers, man. I mean, they have some guys who can score the ball. I'm not saying they have guys who can consistently score it in the fourth quarter when you need it down the stretch. You need to get it out of Luka's hands. But Trey Burke was incredible. Seth Curry's been incredible. Tim Hardaway Jr. As a Knicks fan, he could score, but he sure looks good in Dallas. He looks good as a number 3 option, which give him credit because he's scoring the ball. And then I'll echo Jeff Van Gundy. Boban is an excellent offensive player. I think they were plus 10 in his 16 minutes on the court yesterday. He has that. He gets down low. He either dunks it or he has a beautiful kind of like 10-foot one-hander that goes in almost 100% of the time. So the Mavericks have some guys. I think they're going to take it to 7. I still like the Clippers as well, but I think they'll take it to 7. And the other just thing I want to say about the Luka shot inside the NBA after went through a few of the game winners from the last few years in the playoffs. LeBron against the Pacers, Lillard against OKC to send them home. And they were all incredible. But what's unique about this shot, and people need to understand this, they were down 1. You make it, you win. You miss it, you lose. Those other shots they show, there was a tie game. You miss it, you go to either overtime or double overtime. Totally different dynamic. I'm not taking anything away from LeBron or Lillard, but this is totally different. When you're down 1 and you need to make a step-back 3 like that, you start going into one of the most clutch shots like ever. I know it's just the first round, but incredible by Luka.
No, you're totally right about that. It's a totally different thing. If you shoot and miss, you lose. Or if you shoot and miss, it's overtime. You're totally right. I do want to mention we would be remiss if we didn't mention Doncic's bad ankle. I mean, it looked like he turned it badly in the last game. For him to come out and play, so he's got a bad ankle. Porzingis isn't there. How much chance could you really? And the Clippers go up 21. I mean, it was almost to turn your TV sets off there, but in the NBA you can't. I agree with you in terms of the shot makers that Dallas has, but I'll say it again, and I'll be interested to see if when this is all over, somebody does some kind of study on the bubble versus the rest of the season, because all these guys are making threes like crazy for Dallas, and I understand Curry can light it up sometimes. I didn't really know that Hardaway Jr. could. I'd have to go check his stats, but you're right. They've got some guys who can make a ton of shots. Just finally on Doncic, to give him his due, 43 points on 18 for 31 shooting, 4 for 10 from 3, 17 rebounds, 13 assists. And as they said on Inside the NBA, 40 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. Luka Doncic, 21 years old, Charles Barkley, and of course the Big O. So we'll be signing off. Any final words, Johnny? Because we both like the Clippers in 7 now. I think it's probably because we picked the Clippers before and we don't want to go off it. But clearly, if Porzingis comes back from the knee and Doncic gets a little healthier, although I don't know how unhealthy he was yesterday, clearly they can win the series. But we're both still going with the Clippers in 7.
Yeah, just 2 really quick final thoughts. Luka Doncic at the age of 21 has become like one of the 3 best overall offensive players in the game. I don't want to overreact and say he's the best offensive player in the game right now, but if you look at a combination of scoring and passing, he's right up there with Harden and LeBron. I mean, it's really incredible. He's probably already one of the 10 best players in the league, and right now he's playing like a top 5 player, so that's incredible. The last point I want to make, NBA, I actually, that's a good point you made about the bubble. Maybe there is something about the bubble that some of these guys, whether it's Warren, whether it's Mitchell, whether it's Luka, just score a lot better. But NBA, we need to let guys defend. I mean, I know there are some guys who don't, like some teams just don't play defense anymore, but there are some guys trying to defend out there who get called every play for, breathing on a guy. So we need to let guys defend, especially with all this offensive talent. You have Luka. Look what Lillard has been doing, especially before the playoffs, but even in game 1. And Donovan Mitchell, who's elevating himself to superstar status, joins MJ and Allen Iverson as the only 2 guys to score 50 twice in a playoff series.
Wow.
Him and Jamal Murray are the first guys to score 50 as opposing players in the same game. Give all the credit in the world to them, but I think it also says something when games are, consistently in the 120s in regulation. We need to let guys defend. I'm not saying go back to the 80s and 90s. I think there has to be an in-between where maybe you can't always hand check, but you can let guys get a little more physical, because I think it's getting out of hand. But give Luka and all these guys so much credit. It's been really fun to watch.
I think you're right, but I think the wave of the 21st century is offense, offense, offense. You see in baseball, I don't care what they say, there's something with the baseballs, the home run in baseball, and I'm not even talking about the PED era. In football, come on, the forward pass and the way it's been now has, totally changed the game in the last 10, 15 years, maybe 25 years. And so too now, maybe in basketball, I'm not saying, but I will say this. I've heard Walt Frazier talk many times about when he played, obviously, in the 70s, how they could hand check. And he would go, you might watch somebody hand check somebody and think that's nothing, but these guys had incredibly strong hands, and they could put a hand on the back, and they're just laying on the back, and they could put so much force on you, you literally couldn't come forward into them. So that really has revolutionized the game, and I won't go back into, along with the new carry that's been allowed for about since Allen Iverson, and the new split the double team like that, and of course the 3-point shot, which when it first came out, as you know, was not a big deal. And now the future is only going to get, hey, you got kids in third grade shooting threes now. So the more they come into the league. And that's why I think with Dallas, for example, you're seeing these 7 or 8 guys making threes. If you're a big man, you're much, much better if you can make a three. So the game really has evolved and changed. I agree with you. If there was a way, I don't think they're going to let you hand check with less than 5 minutes left in the game or something, although that would be interesting. But I think something has to be done as well. And you know what? I think the answer is going to be not in the corners. You can't do it. But the answer might be to move the 3-point line back, because it's becoming easy for real good shooters to make. I mean, look at where Lillard's shooting from, or Curry. These guys take 2 steps across half court and shoot, and it's like not a bad shot. So I think you made some good points. We'll see Clippers in 7. I'm sure we'll do some more of these over the next couple of weeks. This is Steve Kallas, speaking of sports, along with Johnnie Kallas. We'll see you the next time.